Hello everyone. In the last video, we saw how we can make modification to a blob in a storage account from Visual Studio. In this video, we are going to be taking it a step further. We are going to be using Lease. I'll be introducing the concept of Lease. But before we open Visual Studio, let me just explain what we really want to do. I'm sharing my screen now. Hopefully you'll be able to see my browser. Okay, so this is my storage account. This is the container I created that we've been using all through. And I have two blobs, one image and one text file. So to explain the concept of leasing, so the example, the illustration that came to me is, let's say you want to use the restroom. You get into the restroom, you always lock the door. Then after locking the door, you use the restroom. Then when you are out of the restroom, you open the door. Before I shed more light on that analogy, a storage account is just like a data store. It's like a database. So you probably have so many applications that feeds off from it. So it's feeding many applications with information. Many applications run based on the information that they get from a storage account, maybe a blob or any kind of services that is available in a storage account. However, because in the last video, we've seen that the data in a storage account can be modified. If many applications are making use of it, there can be what I will call collision. So an application A has modified a blob in a storage account, and application B was expecting to have access to an earlier version of the blob, and he didn't know that the blob has already been modified, and what he later had access to was a modified version. So all this can cause collision. So that is where the concept of lease comes in. In the last video, we didn't use lease at all. We just made modification based on, we used the memory stream to make modification, then we upload to our storage account, which is considered not very safe, especially when there's a chance that so many applications are making use of that storage data from that storage account. So back to my analogy on a toilet, the concept of lease is just saying that when one application is making use of a storage account, the door should be locked. The same way when you get into the restroom and you are trying to use the restroom, you always lock the, you always ensure the door is shut, is locked, so that when another person wants to come in, the person will know that someone is already inside. However, when you are done, you now open the door. You let entry, you open the door so that any other person that wants to use the restroom will be able to come in. Yeah, I believe with that analogy, we have an understanding about what we want to do. And to acquire leads, it's pretty straightforward. You can select the blob that you are working with, and you come to, you click on acquire leads over here. You click on it, or I believe you can also do it from here, acquire leads. You can also do it from here. So you can, and the moment I acquire the lease over here, the lease state will change from being available to not being available. Then when I'm done working with it, I can also manually break the lease. I can break it so that it will become available again. Okay, so let me open what we have here. Let me go to edit. Let's see the content. I've deleted what we initially added, so it's a clean one. This is what we have done. Let me close this. And now we are going to our Visual Studio. So what we want to do is, rather than acquire the lease from the portal, we want to acquire the lease remotely from Visual Studio. And if I should acquire a lease, so I think because I will be working on this text file, let me use this for my illustration. If I should acquire a lease, I would have a lease ID. So let me acquire the lease here. Yeah, so you can see the lease ID. So this lease ID is just like the um key that you use to open the restroom. So let's say before you can come out, before you can go in, you need a key that you need to use to be able to use the restroom, to be sure that you that have access are the only one that can be inside. Someone outside cannot come in because that person would not have the key combination that needs to be used to come in. So this list ID, what we want to do is from Visual Studio, we are going to be able to generate this list ID for that particular blob. Then we are now going to use this list ID to make modification to the blob. So such that another application will not have access to this list ID. Because I mean, when the lease has been acquired, another person cannot acquire it anymore until when that lease is expired. We're also going to be setting a timeout. So you can set it, probably depends on how long you need to do what you need to do. You can set for 30 seconds, you can set for 5 minutes, depends on the amount of processes that needs to be carried out. In our own case, we just want to modify a text file. That can take microseconds, it's not long at all. So we do not need so many seconds for what we want to do. So this list ID is very key when it comes to leasing. So you can see the list state has changed to lease now. So what I want to do is, let me break the lease. Break lease so that someone can use it. So it's broken. After a while, it will become available again. Yeah, so what we are going to do now is we'll be going to Visual Studio. I hope my analogy, my restroom explanation allows you to understand how leads work. So this is still our console application. It hasn't changed, and it's still the same declarations that we always use when you are working with storage accounts. You need to declare your connection string, your container name, we are not going to be using a path to a local blob because we are working directly with Azure. We are not storing anything in my computer. We are not uploading anything from my computer also, for my local computer. So we are not using this. But we're also using the blob name. Then this is our main function. Then as usual, as I always say, blobs, we have three layers: the storage account layer, the container layer, and the blob layer. For the storage account layer, to have access into the storage account, you make use of the connection string, and you start with blob service client. That's the class that you use. Then to go into the container, you use blob container client, and you also pass in the container name, which we've already declared as a variable up there. Then to specify the blob you are working with, we use blob client. Then in this case, we are working with memory stream, but in addition to what we did in the previous video for on about how we made modification to our memory, instead of just doing it directly, we need to acquire our lease. We generate a lease ID for the blob, then we use that lease ID to update what is in Azure. But our computations are done in memory in my local computer. It's not being downloaded to my hard disk. That's why there's no paths to that. Then we can see our blob client is downloaded to memory. So what we have on Azure, the unmodified version, is being stored in memory. Then we want to see it in the console, and we are starting from the beginning. So we use our stream reader, and from our stream reader, we also pass what has been stored in memory. That's why you need to have a good RAM when making this. Depends on the size of your blob and what you are working with. Then we use our stream reader to read through what has been stored in memory, and we console log it into in our output screen, and we console log down to the end. We read to the end using our stream reader. Then this is where we've already spoken about all I've said in the previous video, but this is where the action really happens. So we haven't covered this. So rather than just make our modification and upload to Azure, what we want to do now is to generate a lease ID. And to generate a lease ID, we use blob lease clients. So we can see this is what would actually give us our lease ID, and we specify the time period for this. And we are specifying, let me make it 60 seconds so that we can see some how it's affected in Azure. So afterwards, what we have here will give us a lease ID. So we've acquired the lease here, and we can use this object to call the lease ID variable, and we are also writing it to screen over here. As I said earlier on, we are trying the reason why we are doing this is to prevent collision. When we have so many applications reading from our storage accounts. That's one of the reasons why this is done already. Then what we want to do now is we want to make a change, but rather than just make the change and upload, we've already covered this in the previous video when we were not using Lease. But if you come over here, we are now adding a condition to our upload. So instead of just uploading, we are adding a condition, and in this condition, we are specifying a lease ID, and we are assigning it to what we got as the lease ID, what we've console logged as the lease ID, which is what we have here. So the lease ID that was generated, that we console log, we are assigning it to as a variable lease ID. Then what we are going to do is now we want to upload, because we are attaching this lease ID to our blob upload options. So now we are also starting from the beginning, but instead of just uploading to memory, instead of just uploading, we are now also adding the blob upload options that we've declared earlier on. Then we are now releasing it as well. Then we just console log that the change has been made and press any key to continue. So this is just a simple way of making a modification to a blob while using Lease ID instead of just doing it um, in the more traditional way. So I'll be running this program and let's see if our changes will be reflected. So all my codes, it will be in the official GitHub repo that we are going to be using. Yeah, so we have our Lease ID. So let me um stop sharing, and I want to share my output screen so that you see what we are doing. Okay, from this you can see the Lease ID. The Lease ID is, and we have a long string containing the Lease ID, and we can see that the change has been made. The change has been made. So now let me stop sharing. Let's go to our portal. Let's go to our portal. So we will share. Let's go to our portal. Yeah, so we can see that our application, our blob, let's see if our changes is reflected here. So you can see that this is a second change, which was what was added from Visual Studio. Previously, we didn't have this. So I hope that we have an understanding on what we are doing and also the reason why we are doing it. As I said earlier on, I would be uploading all the codes that we are working with in our GitHub repository so that you can use them for your internal projects. You can modify them and see how you can use them in bigger, in more elaborate projects. As I always say, one thing I want to add is that in our Visual Studio, go to Visual Studio. Let me stop running. Yeah, so in our Visual Studio, we have our connection string as part of our code. This isn't the best part. You shouldn't be having connection string within your code. There's a more secure way to go about this. And the most obvious, the easiest way to go about it is to use environment variables and have your connection string as an environment variable. But there are even more better ways on how to treat your environment variable and also how to handle secrets and credentials such as keys, but we'll look at that in our upcoming videos. So I think we are done with this. If you have any question around what we've done, you can always leave a comment in the video. One thing I would say is that when you are done with the modification that you've done and you've uploaded to Azure, it's always good to free up your blob so that any other person that wants to use it will be able to make use of it. That's why we can see that we have a release here. So blob list client dot release. So we are really when we are done, we are ensuring that the blob is released for any other application to have access to it. Okay, so this is where we would end this video. I hope it was informative.